Welcome to Business Talk with Meghan McNulty, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of business success and reveals the strategies, insights, and stories that drive these professionals to thrive in the ever-evolving world of business. Whether you're an established entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply fascinated by the world of commerce, this podcast is your front row seat to learn from the best. Each episode, Meghan will bring you engaging interviews with professionals from diverse industries who will share their triumphs, lessons learned, and the insights they've gained along the way.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm great. So I'd like to talk to you today about lobbying, but specifically about the aesthetics industry, because it's very, I would say, unregulated, or policy hasn't necessarily been initiated. So with that said, that's what our general topic is going to be about today. I'd simply like to ask you, explain lobbying to someone. Let's just start from the basics, because some people listening might not know what lobbying is. So explain what lobbying is to someone in the aesthetics industry who may not see it as relevant to them.
Yeah, so lobbying, basically, anytime let's put it this way, anytime an individual or a business has to interact with the government, whether it be, local, state, federal, anytime you need to interact with the government, it's good to hire a lobbyist to represent you. So lobbyists, they know the ins and outs of the, how bureaucracy and government works, and they just help you navigate the bureaucracy that is government. So it's always, beneficial to have someone advocating on your behalf that knows how to, navigate things.
Okay. So let's just say hypothetically that Congress in Washington, D.C. was going to pass some bill that said, doctors have to perform now all procedures where they're actually poking someone's skin and blood is coming out, just being really simple. And that would really affect lots of people in the cosmetic industry. So estheticians, nurse practitioners, RNs, depending on what state you're in, on a lot of procedures they use products on, or, different lasers or techniques. So how would a lobbyist help someone in that situation?
Well, see, you made probably a good point. Politicians in DC or in the medical world, and mostly at the state level, are just that. They're politicians. Oftentimes they come from a business background, a lot of lawyers, but rarely do they have a medical background. So you have these people up in California's case, up in Sacramento, creating laws that affect millions of people around medicine that have no idea what they're doing, no idea what they're talking about. They don't have a background in this area. So in the case of the medical world or medical aesthetics world, it's very important to have someone up in Sacramento saying, hey, let me help educate you on this industry. The last thing a politician, see politicians, it's all about getting reelected, right? Right. So the last thing a politician wants to do is be known as the job killer or the business killer, or, be too overbearing or have a knee-jerk reaction. So, and that's oftentimes the case. We have a case out in Texas called Jennifer's Law, and I'll be brief, but long story short, there was a death. There's an IV that was administered incorrectly. So all of a sudden pops up on the politician's radar, lawmakers' radar, and they say, okay, we got to do something about this. So your immediate thought is that we got to ban this practice. Well, we all know that, a number of us get IVs on a daily basis or weekly basis. So that's not the proper reaction. Yeah. So what we do is we go and say, hey, let us educate you. Let us explain this process. I mean, we are for good policy. We want to protect people as well. We want patients to have peace of mind when going into a medical facility, that it's going to be done right. Right. So the key is go up and say, hey, Mr. Politician, Miss Politician, we understand the need for regulation. Regulation is good, but let's not get carried away and go overboard. Let us educate you and explain the best course of action for this particular issue. Okay.
So one thing I learned about lobbying when I first kind of started out was that I didn't realize that there's a difference between state lobbying and federal lobbying. Can you explain to people what the difference between state and federal lobbying is?
Yeah, so federal is anything that happens in DC that affects the entire country. well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes it affects individual states based on industry, but basically anything that happens in DC is federal. State level lobbying is our laws basically that are done by the state house and state senate of each particular state up at their capital. And they basically create laws that pertain solely to the citizens of that state. So then you have local lobbying as well. A lot of cities and counties have local laws that are enacted, and we represent businesses and individuals at the local level as well.
Okay. So that I never knew this. So this was like fascinating to learn. So the next thing that my question is like, who hires lobbyists?
Oh gosh. I mean, you can hire lobbyists as an individual. I'll give you an example. We had a client who had a family that had assets out of the country, and they were trying to recover the assets and were having trouble recovering their family's individual assets, nothing to do with business, completely family. And they enlisted our help to work with the State Department of the United States and the foreign government to help recover those assets and facilitate the transfer of the assets back. So individuals can hire lobbyists. The vast majority of our clients are businesses.
Okay. How much does it cost like a business owner roughly to hire lobbyists? Is it kind of like hiring an attorney?
It's very much like hiring an attorney. Very much like hiring an attorney. I've seen contracts go from $5,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. I mean, I don't handle anything in the upper range of that scale, but you have big corporations. You have airlines and pharma and oil and all these blue chip or Fortune 100 companies that all pay millions of dollars to hire representation and to ensure that lawmakers are working in such a way where it's beneficial for the economy of the United States.
Okay, so I'm going to switch to the aesthetic industry now. So can you tell us why lobbying has been overlooked in the aesthetic industry? And when I say aesthetic industry, I'm talking about medical spas, plastic surgeons, dentists that are basically performing cosmetic procedures on the face or around the face, RNs, nurse practitioners, estheticians, and sometimes now clinics that are doing IV therapy would be classified as medical device or medical spas. So can you tell us, there really hasn't been a lot of lobbying in this space. It's definitely like the wild, wild west for sure.
You hit the nail on the head. The medical aesthetic space is in fact like the wild, wild west, or has in fact been the wild, wild west. Since inception, there really hasn't been much oversight. I mean, you have state medical boards that provide oversight, but it's kind of all for one and one for all up until recently. So and now when I say medical aesthetics, I'm talking about not necessarily plastic surgeons and physicians. Those are obviously while they do provide medical aesthetic procedures or oversee them, the practice of plastic surgery is kind of regulated by another entity. But so med spas, we'll use med spas as an example.
Okay.
They kind of just, I should say up until recently have kind of largely done their own thing. There is some oversight. We have physicians that act as medical directors of multiple facilities that aren't necessarily on site at all times, but it's largely acted, with little oversight. So the need for representation, for advocacy, has become more of a necessity recently with the legislators taking a closer look at this industry. And again, I gave the example of Jennifer's Law of Texas. All it took was, a death, which was horrible. I mean, completely avoidable. And in the case of Jennifer's Law, it's, usually you see lobbyists fighting against against new regulation. In the case of Jennifer's Law, I mean, again, a horrible, horrible tragedy that was completely preventable. And so we step in and we say, hey, we agree. This should have never happened. This is ridiculous. We need to introduce some oversight. However, we don't want to, again, have a knee-jerk reaction and create, take a hatchet where we should be using a scalpel. It just doesn't make sense. We want to say, hey, let's talk about, what exactly happened here, why it happened, and what we can do to prevent it from happening again, but also not stifle the entire industry, not completely crush business and crush jobs and crush the ability for patients to get the care they're looking for.
So those who don't know, medical spas do lots of procedures like microneedling, facials, fat freezing, injections, lip filler. They also
The sky's the limit. I can't even keep up. Every day it seems like a new procedure is coming out, a new technology, which is great, but it's hard to keep up.
Right, yeah. And then the biggest thing now is like longevity. So basically like biohacking, like testing your blood to see like what you need in order to optimize your health. So that's another really popular space. So with all these different things being done, what do you think's the government's gonna come down and say like down the road now? Like right now it's kind of like, oh, so like you just said, everyone can kind of do what they want to do. Do you think they're gonna put regulations on these procedures?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt. In addition to a few issues that the industry has experienced, one we just mentioned, the industry is growing at an exponential pace. I mean, just massive growth. It's now again on the radar of lawmakers where it wasn't before. It's now got the attention of lawmakers, got the attention of, other boards that represent other medical professionals. A lot of, there's in the industry now, there's some disagreement on who should perform which procedures. So, with the advent of telehealth, there are all these new technologies that are coming out. And a lot of organizations that represent physicians are saying, hey, we don't want nurse practitioners or physician assistants or registered nurses doing things that were traditionally done by doctors, even though in a lot of instances they're qualified. So people are waking up, industry associations are waking up, lawmakers are waking up. All of a sudden, this industry that largely flew under the radar is now, in fact, on the radar. And so we definitely anticipate seeing a heavy increase in regulation, attention, and advocacy groups coming out of the for or against the industry.
Okay. How does lobbying influence regulations, training requirements, like the scope of practice of aesthetics? What would a lobbyist do if a bunch of estheticians came to you and said, we would like the state to recognize us doing a scope of work? How would we help?
Yeah. So first and foremost, and I alluded to this previously, we are not anti-regulation. We are for good policy. We want educated policy. So we're not saying, let everyone do everything. No, because, you do have bad actors that practice when they're, without the proper certification or licensing. And we don't want that, because what happens is if you have individuals that are just out there, doing whatever they want without oversight or without, correct authority, it's going to hurt the industry as a whole. And that's not what we're looking to do. So lobbyists are often thought of as people that just go out there and, and there are some lobbyists out there that do that, I won't name any industries, but, tobacco comes to mind or, pharma but no, we want to make sure that there is oversight, there is regulation, but it's proper. We want to educate the lawmakers and say, hey, we agree with you 100%. We got to do something about this. We got to get this house in order. However, let's not do it in such a way where, like I said earlier, we're killing jobs, we're killing business, we're, making it so that patients can't get the care they need.
Okay, let's switch over to talking about MAAC. So what is MAAC for those that don't know?
MAAC is the Medical Aesthetics Advocacy Council. And MAAC was born because we realized that there was a gap in advocacy for the medical aesthetics industry. So we come from a traditional lobbying background, have helped a number of businesses. I mean, gosh, I have stories for days about the types, sizes, and all shapes and kinds of businesses that we've helped in the past. And we were retained by an organization that works in the medical aesthetic space. And in doing our due diligence, we said, okay, who is the industry group that currently serves this industry? And to our surprise, there wasn't one. So we thought, okay, this is one of the fastest growing industries in the United States it's experiencing year over year growth that would just blow your mind. And there is really no organization that's solely focused on this industry. That's just blew our minds. You have the the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association, you have associations for days, the Corn Growers Association and this association, that association, and which are all good. I mean, those are groups of people that truly do some good work in advocating for their industries. However, again, nothing for medical aesthetics. And while this may not have been necessary in the past due to lack of oversight, it is absolutely necessary now, because if there isn't a group of individuals that have the network, that have the know-how, that have the skills to advocate for the industry will face major headwinds. And we've already seen it this year alone.
Right.
So it's a must. I mean, and we said, well, we have the know-how, we have the contacts, we have the skills and expertise. Let's and not only that, but we're based here in Southern California, which is, I would argue, the mecca of medical aesthetics, especially here in Orange County, Newport Beach. So we thought, we are very well positioned to be strong advocates for this industry, and we'd love to take up this charge. That's
amazing. So it's a membership organization. Mm-hmm. So I guess you pay yearly or monthly to be a member.
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, kind of to give an idea of how this works, say you own a med spa and you have 10 employees, and I'll use California as an example. The state of California, we have a legislature in the assembly that's going to propose or carry a bill to, this is just completely hypothetical, but say there's a maximum number of 5 people allowed at each med spa employees. And you're thinking to yourself, well, that's not good. I mean, I have 20 employees. If I have to go down to 5, it's going to drastically, reduce my business. I can't.
Right.
So what you do as a business owner traditionally is you'd say, okay, I need to hire someone to represent me in my interests, to go up to Sacramento and say, hey, Mrs. Assemblywoman, I understand where you're coming from. I get why you're introducing this bill. However, these are the unintended consequences. You're going to put 15 people out of work. You're going to make us like only serve 10 patients a day as opposed to 20, 30 patients a day. And this is why it's unnecessary. So you'd hire a lobbyist, you pay anywhere from, 5 to, as an individual business owner, $5,000 to $25,000 a month for that. And, hope that lobbyist is going to, protect your business.
Okay.
Well, as I'm sure you can, imagine, that's a hefty price tag.
Right.
$5,000 to $25,000 a month. That's not something that, a small business owner can afford. So what we do is we say, okay, well, we're going to get all these business owners, all these, individual estheticians, paramedics, anybody working in the medical aesthetic space. And we say, hey, we're going to represent you guys as a whole. We're going to represent the industry as a whole. And instead of paying, $5,000 to $25,000 a month to our lobbyist, you pay a fraction of the amount, a very, very small membership fee. And like you said, you can, pay your membership fee monthly. And you have the peace of mind knowing that you have a team of professionals, lawyers, and we have physicians that are with MAAC. We have lobbyists, but you have a team of professionals that are going to advocate. They're going to keep an eye on bills that are coming down the pipeline, that are going to let you know, what those bills are and how they're going to affect your business, and that are going to meet with you and say, hey, on a one-on-one basis, and say, hey, this is what they're talking about. This is what we can do to fight it, and this is how it could potentially impact your business. So you can plan ahead. Yeah. So it's kind of like like an insurance policy, or like joining like AAA, like automobile service.
Yeah.
You pay us
absolutely
a very, very small monthly amount, and you get the peace of mind knowing that someone's fighting for you, fighting for your business, protecting your business, protecting you. There to answer questions for you, there to make sure that you're well represented.
I love that. So who's like joining MAAC right now?
Oh gosh.
What kind of individuals or businesses?
You kind of alluded to that previously. We have dentists, we have doctors, we have plastic surgeons, we have med spa owners, we have med spa employees, we have RNs, nurse practitioners, we have PAs, we have estheticians, we have people that do eyebrows and eyebrow threading. I mean, you name it. Anyone that is even remotely tied to the medical aesthetics industry that has an interest in seeing the industry flourish as a whole, or that has seen, the increase in regulation, will join. And it's a very, very, very small price to pay for peace of mind. Again, knowing that, you're covered, and you can also, you pick up the phone, we have a phone number you call, you speak to someone, answers the phone. We don't put you through a system. We don't take, it's not a voicemail. You pick up the phone, you have someone to talk to, and you have a professional at your disposal that can guide you through the government bureaucracy.
Amazing. What would you say is an example of MAAC helping, someone in the aesthetic industry?
I'd say our most recent project, and that's why I brought up Jennifer's Law earlier. That's the project we're working on actually as we speak. I have a meeting tonight with a group. We're working with a group of paramedics in the state of Texas, and the Texas legislature had this law. Again, knee-jerk reaction to a horrible case. We said, okay, well, this is not going to work. You're going to, in the specific case of our paramedics. These paramedics, through the course of their profession, administer IVs. So if you call 911 and you're in bad shape, the paramedics show up, they, again, through the course of their profession, are certified, trained, and able to administer an IV. Sometimes they do that to stabilize you, to get you, to deliver a drug that's necessary to keep you alive on the way to the hospital. So it's something within their scope of work. So the Texas legislature said, we want to really cut down. There's this IV death. We really want to cut down. We're going to drastically limit who can deliver IVs. Well, this is a common sense issue. I mean, what they wanted to do is basically say, okay, the paramedics, through the course of carrying you in an ambulance to the hospital can do it. But when they're outside of that, we're going to limit their ability to do that. Well, that doesn't make sense at all. If I could stick a needle in you in an ambulance, I should be able to stick a needle in you, in a not moving vehicle.
Makes sense.
Common sense. Of course, legislatures don't think that way. They're politically driven. So coincidentally, as I'm sure you heard, a few months ago, we had these tragic floods in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. And these paramedics, while all this is going on in Austin, the Capitol, behind the scenes, these paramedics were volunteering their time in administering IVs to flood victims, to first responders. I mean, they're down there doing God's work, keeping people safe, helping people out. And had this bill been in effect, which it will be September 1st, they would have been unable to do that. Well, that's just not logical at all. So we did some research and are in the process of giving them some guidance and really looking into this bill and getting some clarification on it for them, because they, otherwise they're going to have to, stop administering IVs outside of, being a paramedic. And so we're in the process of looking through this right now. We believe we have a solution. We believe that the bill was written poorly and is very vague. But yeah, that's in progress right now. But that's one small example of what we do. We're very proactive, and we like to catch these things before they become an issue. And so we're working with the legislature currently. We're working with our group of paramedics and to get clarification to make sure that they're able to do their jobs and to serve people.
I love that. So my next question would be, let's say, would you consider MAAC a networking group too? Would it be a good use for people to help network?
Absolutely.
Industry, people in the same industry across the country? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we have group meetings, we have town halls, we have Zoom calls, we have we participate in trade shows. We're going to be down at Aesthetic Next in Dallas next month. But yeah, we have a very strong group. We stay in close contact with our members and encourage them to interact with each other, because the more we know, the more the industry, the more educated we are, the better we can educate the lawmakers. And so we try to maintain very, very close contact with our members. And again, as I said earlier, I mean, there's so many new advancements in technology coming out, too many to even keep up with. And it's all great stuff. I mean, you mentioned longevity. Right. That's kind of the new exciting thing. I mean, longevity and health, especially with the way our federal government's going. I mean, we have this MAAC movement led by Secretary Kennedy, which is just terrific. And so it's really, really exciting to participate, not only because this is, again, an ever-changing industry, lots of technological advancements, exciting things. It's about healthcare. It's about staying healthy and feeling young and staying young. And it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I would say also, if you want control over your own health, nothing against primary care physicians. They're lovely and we still need them and important. But with this new wave of medical spas and the technology coming out, a lot of individuals can take control of their own health, proactively in a cash market like a med spa and, get ahead of, potential chronic or, long-term diseases.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always good to have a specialist. I mean, you mentioned primary care physicians, which are amazing. I have a primary care physician.
Me too.
He's, in my opinion, the best in the US. But, but you also need specialists. You need, if you have an issue, with your brain, you're going to go see a neurologist.
Right.
So you need, if you have issue, these are all medical doctors. If you have issues with your eyes, you're going to go see an ophthalmologist. So you truly do need a specialist. Your primary care physician is your quarterback. But yeah, as it pertains to longevity, I mean, we have some phenomenal physicians on our board of advisors that we meet with on a regular basis and talk about these advancements, specifically in the area of longevity and well-being. And it's exciting stuff. And these topics are certainly not an area where every doctor stays up to date on the latest and greatest. I mean, they're focusing, again, ophthalmologists are focusing on the latest and greatest advancements in eye health, right? So yeah, it's absolutely important to stay up to date and have specialists in each area of health.
Absolutely. So how can people listening find MAAC? Where do they go?
So visit our website, MAAC. So it's MAACUS, MAACUS.com, which is Medical Aesthetics Advocacy Council. Go online and take a look or give us a call. Yeah.
You can also find us on social media. I think that's MAACOUNCIL, MAAC Council. So anyway, thanks, Nick. Anything else you want to add or?
Well, no, it's an exciting time to be in the space. I mean, like I said, it's exponential growth, advancements in technology. We all want to, feel better and look better and live longer. So it's an exciting time to be in the space. We just want to make sure that, everyone's educated, everyone's represented. And that's the main thing. We want everyone to be successful in this space. Patients, business owners, physicians, everyone across the board. We want our lawmakers, most importantly, to, represent us well. And so it's exciting to do this work.
And I forgot to mention, private equities put a lot of money into the industry, so we know it's going to boom even.
Yeah, that's a whole different
topic.
Topic. Yeah, maybe for another time.
Okay.
Yeah. It's exciting stuff.
Well, thank you so much. I hope this was helpful to people listening.
Okay. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Business Talk podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. Thank you for joining us today. This has been another episode of Business Talk with Meghan McNulty.